होनी हां ना स्ट्रीमिंग टा हेन नथला कर नथली सेठी गेस हो जान कॉलिंग पर स्ट्रीमिंग स्टार्ट स्ट्रीमिंग चल कि होनी आपण आवतर
स्टार्ट स्ट्रीमिंग कोन दे स्टार्ट स्ट्रीमिंग कोन
स्टार्ट स्ट्रीमिंग में करिछि एटा तो स्टार्ट रेकॉर्डिंग ना ठीक है तो
ada kata tidur kan
आपण क्वेश्चन आपण गोटे पसी जानत इतरे क्वेश्चन तो गूगल मीटर क्वेश्चन
मोटे पछादा के प्रश्न
এটা গোটে গুগল মিটর এটি পাত্র চলেবে না ক্রিয়েট প্রবলেম ହଁ ଦେଖିବେ ଗୁଗୁଲ ୟୁଟ୍ୟୁବଟା ଟିକେ ଦେଖିବେ କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚନ୍ ଗୁଡ଼ା କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚନ୍ ତିନି ଚାରିଟା କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚନ୍ ହଁ ଦୁଇଟା ତିନିଟା କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚନ୍ ଦେଖିବେ ୟୁଟ୍ୟୁବରେ ୟୁଟ୍ୟୁବ ଲିଙ୍କ୍ ପାଇଛନ୍ତି ତ ହଁ ଗ୍ରୁପ୍ରେ ଅଛି ମାନେ ସତ୍ୟ ସାର୍ ମାଗି ନେଇଯାଉ ପାଣି ବୋଟଲଟା କ'ଣ କଲେ ସାର୍ ଅଛି ସାଉଣ୍ଡ ଯାଉଛି କି ସାର୍ ଯାଉଛି Start करियो आगे. हाँ? Hello, am I audible? Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a matter of pleasure
Good afternoon, sir.
and pride to invite you all and welcome you all to this today's webinar on the topic Absurd Literature, a World Without Meaning. Before the commencement of this session, I would like to announce one thing. I request all the participants, please unmute yourself, your video as well as your audio, so that won't create any kind of a disturbance during the ongoing session. Due to some problem in my laptop, the video is not, my photograph is not seen. So anyway, now we shall start. Good afternoon, everyone. Now I seek the blessings of
Sir.
Pranam sir. Pranam sir.
Pranam, sir. Pranam.
Again
Sir,
sir.
Pranam.
Okay sir. Namaskar. Namaskar. So before
Namaskar.
I would like to seek the blessings of Lord Jagannath and pray to the Lord to kindly lead us all. Esteemed principal of Udala College, Udala, revered chief guest cum chief speaker of today's webinar, respected staff members and dear students. At the very outset, I, Dr. P.K. Panda, IQAC coordinator of Udala College, express my sincere gratitude to you all for your kind support and participation on today's webinar. It's my pleasure and privilege to welcome our respected participants, which include teachers, students, and research scholars who have joined from different parts of the country and from abroad as well to this virtual platform. It's needless to say that without your support and active participation, we won't even think of conducting such a type of webinar now or in near future. Here I also welcome our esteemed principal, Sir Professor Gopal Chandra Behera, whose continuous support and inspiration has motivated us to organize a series of webinars in our college. In fact, because of his continuous support and encouragement, we have conducted 6 numbers of webinars till date, and we expect more in the coming days. I also welcome our respected staff members, students to today's session. I also welcome respected IQAC officer in charge, Professor Satyabrata sir. I welcome you all to today's webinar on the topic Absurd Literature, a world without meaning. Further, it's a matter of honor and privilege for me to welcome our honorable chief guest come chief speaker of today's session, Professor Rajendra Kumar Padhi sir, who is an eminent writer, a poet, a novelist, and an educationist too. He is now working as HOD English of BB Autonomous Mahavidyalaya Chandikhol, Odisha. Sir, I on behalf of Principal Udala College and the IQAC extend my sincere gratitude and respect to you, sir, for giving us time and being a part of this webinar. I sincerely extend a warm welcome to you, sir, and invite you to this August session. Hope sir's deliberation on the chosen topic will be an enlightening one and immensely benefit everyone present here in this virtual platform. Once again, I welcome everyone present here. Now, I would request our Honorable Principal, Professor Gopal Chandra Behera sir, to present his presidential address. Sir,
Thank you, sir.
over to you, sir.
Thank you, Panda sir. Esteemed chief guest, come chief speakers of today's webinar, Professor Rajendra Padhi, respected participants who have joined from all over the country and from overseas, my dear colleagues and students. At the outset, I thank you all for joining in our sixth webinar organized by the IQAC Udala College, Udala. In this respect, I extend my thanks to IQAC officers in charge, Dr. Prafulla Kumar Panda and Professor Satya Malik, for taking all possible initiatives to organize such a type of webinar in our college with an aim to inspire and update our students as well as teachers' knowledge during this pandemic time. It's my pleasure and privilege to speak a few words about my college. Udala College
Sound clear.
Udala was established in the year 1965. Since then, it has walked miles, though it has to cover more in the years to come. Our college is the one and only nodal center in the subdivision. Being one of the premier colleges in the district and in Odisha as well, we have 14 number of honors subjects. Our students have made us proud by securing top positions at the university level every year. Our college has been accredited with B++ by the NAC in the year 2016. The topic chosen for today's webinar, Absurd Literature, a world without meaning, is a very useful one for the teachers, honest students, as well as for the research scholars. According to Albert Camus, one of the penchant flaws of the tradition of absurd literature, the absurd is born out of the confrontation between the questioning mind of man and the unreachable silence of the universe. Absurdism refers to human struggle to find the inherent value and the meaning of life, and his inability to find it due to humanly limited constraints. The very concept of absurdism developed in the year 1950s after the two world wars, which shook the whole world. The mass killings of millions of people, degeneration of spiritual values, and growth of materialistic mindset in men made the writers of the age believe that the world is meaningless, which ultimately led to the birth of absurd literature. I welcome our research person, Professor Rajendra Padhi sir, to keep his deliberation elaborately on it. Lastly, I once again congratulate the organizers for arranging such an illuminating and useful session on the very topic. I wish a great success to this program. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words and encouraging words. Such words will definitely help us and motivate us to organize such type of webinars in the near future for the betterment of the college as well as for the teachers and students. Now, I would like to give a brief introduction of today's topic. The term absurd refers to the conflict between the human tendency to seek inherent value and meaning in life and the human inability to find any in a purposeless, meaningless, chaotic, and irrational universe. The disillusionment of the two world wars, the dreadful materialism, moral or spiritual degeneration, and philosophical vision of life by modern philosophers led to the birth of absurd literature. Absurdism is a movement in philosophy and literature which started in the 1950s as a reaction to the movement of existentialism in literature, which began in the mid to late 19th century but reached its peak in mid 20th century, emphasizing individual existence, freedom, and choice. Existentialism viewed that humans define their own meaning in life and try to make rational decisions despite existing in an irrational universe. On the other hand, absurdism believes that world is meaningless and man should accept as well as rebel against it. There is no choice left in his hands. According to Albert Camus, the absurd is born out of the confrontation between the questioning mind of man and the unreasonable silence of the universe. Further, Camus, in his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, stated that the human situation is essentially absurd, devoid of purpose, so individuals should embrace the absurd condition of human existence. Besides existentialism, other movements in the field of art like avant-garde, nihilism, Dadaism, surrealism, expressionism also became the breeding ground for absurd literature. Absurd literature as a new genre of literature became popular after the publication of the book Theatre of the Absurd by Martin Esslin in 1960, which was basically an interpretation of the prose and drama of the 1950s and 60s to explore a new way of writing literature in non-realistic writings. The meaninglessness and paradoxes of human life in a world highly unintelligible brought the truth that search for meaning in existence is futile in an absurd existence. The essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, published in the year 1942, explores the very concept of existence to accept the absurdity to avoid defeat or suicide. Camus explores the historical theme of alienation when man, being away from illusion, finds that man feels as a stranger. The literature and philosophy of the absurdist fiction, plays, and prose dealt various problems of human situations, which reveals all those elements of irony, sufferings, language barriers, communication failures, and all those things to force man for an endless search for meaning. The unspoken substances of the centuries were brought forth in literature, which the absurdist view that life is funny, tragic, ludicrous in a world of situations which lack personal power and occupational space, as death waits for the extinction of everything which has given an illusion of possessiveness. Absurd literature has given opportunity to millions to release themselves from sufferings, to speak out the meaninglessness. They have also mocked fascism, Marxism, and so many issues like power struggles and class struggles. The search in the field of philosophy of the modern philosophers, a close observation of human situations has led the absurd literature to explore a new kind of technique beyond conventional technique in a unique in the field of art and literature to present the realities of life and existence with utmost freedom. There are a good number of writers who followed the style and form of the absurd in their writings. The prominent among them are Franz Kafka, Jean-Paul Sartre, Samuel Beckett, Eugene Ionesco, Albert Camus, Salvelo, Donald Bartholomew, and Cormac McCarthy, Edward Albee, Harold Pinter, Tom Stoppard, and others. In their writings, they have shattered the basic beliefs and assumptions of the former ages, leaving the readers to find a new and vital expression that corresponds to man's condition in his present society, where he is left to a life that has lost all meaning and purpose. Here I end my introduction. Now it's time to introduce our Honorable Chief Speaker, Professor Rajendra Kumar Padhi sir, and listen to his talk on the topic of today's session, Absurd Literature, a World Without Meaning. Now I would like to introduce our Chief Speaker, Professor Rajendra Kumar Padhi. It's my honor and privilege to welcome and introduce our Honorable Chief Guest cum Chief Speaker of today's session to this august gathering. Our Chief Speaker, Professor Rajendra Kumar Padhi, hails from Padampur, village of Bargarh district, Odisha. His father, late Sachidananda Padhi, was a freedom fighter and has been a great source of inspiration for him. At present, he is working as head of the Department of English, BB Autonomous Mahavidyalaya, Chandikhol, Odisha. Professor Padhi possesses a multifaceted personality. He is at once a brilliant teacher and academician, an eminent speaker, and a prolific bilingual writer too. As a writer, Professor Padhi has many feathers in his caps. He has written 5 books, 4 poetry books, and 1 English novel. His fame as a writer lies in his books like The Living Touch, Songs of Void, O Earth in English, Sunyata Priyatama, which was published in 2008, is written in Odia. His first English novel, The Dark Hours, was published in 2013, has earned him due recognition as a successful writer among the readers in India and abroad. His Reflections, a poetry collection published by Authors Press India, is one of the best-selling poetry books. Besides this, he has translated into English the biography of Saint Arakshita Das and Mohimandal Gita from Odia. Professor Padhi has made immense contribution to the genre called Indo-English poetry, with an aura of Indianness in them, highlighting Indian culture, tradition, and ethos. His poems have been published in more than 60 anthologies in different countries of the world like USA, Germany, India, and Africa, Philippines, Nigeria, and many other countries. He was the feature poet in the year 2000, in the year of the poet 2014 in USA. He has been featured in intercontinental poetry published both from Africa and India. His poems are also published in different quarterly literary magazines in USA, in prose and poetry magazines USA, Gesture of Words, Philippines, and in Rock Pebbles in India also. Because of his significant contributions for the enrichment of Indian writing in English, Professor Padhi is often mentioned in writing in English, the second in India, for his poetic contributions. Further, he has edited several poetry and story books like the Story Wagon, international poetry anthologies named Anthesis, Holy Hymns, Aroma of Wilting Petals, Whispering Hearts, etc., and also written preface, reviews, introduction, and blurbs in many books around the world. He has also written several articles on literature, education, and media, and have been published online and in scholarly journals and are widely appreciated. Professor Rajendra Kumar Padhi has bagged many state, national, and international honors, prizes, and awards during his literary career. He has been felicitated in many literary confluences in India and abroad. His major awards include International Poetry Award, that is Universal Inspirational Poet in Accra, Africa, in the World Friendship Poetry Festival, where he was felicitated in presence by the officer of the Honorable President of Ghana Republic, Honorable Abdul Rashid Pelpu, and Epitacio Tanghoan, father of visual poetry of Philippines, along with other dignitaries and poets of the world. He is also recipient of two national awards by Poetry Forum International Poesis Award and Award for Literary Excellence in Gujarat National Poets Meet in 2014 and 2015 respectively. Now Professor Padhi has associated himself with many socio-cultural and literary associations in the state and in the national level as well and is striving his best for the development of the Indo-English literature and to disseminating the same among the readers both in India and abroad. Sir, really all the staff members of Udala College, Udala are immensely honored to get you as chief guest and chief speaker for today's webinar on the topic Absurd Literature, a World Without Meaning. Sir, once again I on behalf of the principal Udala College and the staff of this college, I welcome you to this webinar and hand over this session to you, sir. Over to you, sir. Professor Padhi, over to you, sir. Shall I share the screen, sir?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Hello and welcome everyone present here. Esteemed Principal of Professor Gopal Chandra Behera, Udala College, IQAC Coordinator Dr. Prafulla Kumar Panda, Mr. Satyavrata Malik, Assistant Coordinator IQAC, Head of the Department of English, all faculty members of Udala College. I extend my hearty welcome to all the scholars and participants of this state level webinar. I express my gratitude for inviting me to this webinar to present my views on the topic Absurd Literature, a World Without Meaning. So, dear friends, I'm really highly thankful and I have chosen this topic to speak because we find from the very inception of literature and from the very inception of human life on earth that we have been confronting phenomenal intricacies, confusions, and our true purpose of life has been failed. In this context, I remember Alice in the Wonderland, this novel written by Lewis Carroll, when Alice falls into a rabbit hole. And when Alice falls into a rabbit hole, she arrives into a wonder world, where she is asked by the caterpillar and the pigeon as who she is. And Alice fails to answer. Here we find Alice is facing
lot of confusions with the adults. And Alice is also facing a lot of confusions when she reaches to the animal and the world of the birds, where actually she loses her identity. When she loses her identity, at the time we find that Lewis Carroll has something to say about the absurdity of our existence. The world exists because we exist. Once we die, everything ends. Life in this vast cosmos is so intricate and phenomenally so intricate that even we look for millions of years at life, we cannot understand it. So it has no meaning. And when there is no meaning, there is no purpose. If at all you have a purpose to build up by your mind and you fulfill it, there is only monotony and boredom after that. Human beings are facing a lot of questions. Is there a meaning in life? Is there meaning in the creation of the universe? If the world is so tiny in the cosmos, where is our place? Is there God? There are so many basic questions which has led to the birth of modern philosophy. But how to escape from this trap? That was the major concern of the modern philosophers. That in spite of the influence of the universe, in spite of the insecurity we feel every moment in our life, we strive for a meaning. This is purely at a psychological level because we always build a wall and we have walls around our bedroom. That is why the contemporary literature has been employed at a higher intellectual level than merely aesthetic gratification. For example, when we are writing a poem or when we are writing a drama or a prose, it is not at the emotional level. It is not the subjective emotion. Rather, we are concerned with the objective reality. That is why literature is not merely for aesthetic gratification today, but it has so many intellectual elements that we have to ponder over, that we have to think about the life that we are living in this world. It has already become a way of thinking rather than mere expression of human emotion. So when we read a poem today, we understand the poet and we understand the atmosphere in which he is living. So literature has become rather a very plain mirror of our existence. Earlier, people they wrote on different subjects, people they emphasized upon nature, they emphasized upon the emotional aspects of human life. But today we have made our literature very simple. We are concerned with the common things of human life, little things of human life. And that is why today literature has an intellectual appeal rather than emotional appeal. So when we read poetry or when we read a novel, at that time we try to brood over what are the intellectual elements in writing. That is why modern literature have worked to explore the realities of life. And my friend was, while giving introduction to this topic, he was mentioning about Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, Camus, Jean-Paul Sartre, Soren Kierkegaard, and so many philosophers who brought actually the realities of life with a rejection of the empire of imagination, because we have created a make-believe world of imagination. Now actually we are making a march towards realism. And that is why the professional hardship of the philosophers have become the breeding ground of literature, art, even science. A journey into pataphysics, which is beyond metaphysics. A journey beyond metaphysics. And the pitiless exposes that the world is without meaning and purpose. So literature and philosophy have been like a lamp to leave the to live in this world, fighting the inadequacies of life to emerge as a superhero, as Nietzsche calls it. In the myth of Sisyphus, as my friend was mentioning, which was published in the year 1942, Camus says that the fundamental conflict between what we want from the universe, whether it has meaning or not, and what we find in the universe is very different. We will never find any meaning that we want to find. He ends the discussion with the myth of Sisyphus, who was punished for all eternity to roll a rock up a mountain only to have it roll back down to the bottom. How diverse the views of the modern and the ancient. So we find a great diversity. We find a great contradiction of the views of the ancient and the modern. Modern philosophers and art movements influence the abstract literature, particularly the writings of 1950s and 1960s. My friend was mentioning about Dadaism. Dadaism is an artistic movement from the early 20th century, predating Surrealism, with its roots in a number of major European artistic capitals. It developed in response to the horrors of the World War I and the World War II. The Dada movement rejected reason. Reason was rejected. Rationality was rejected. And the chaos, the nonsense, and the anti-bourgeois sentiment have been reflected by this art movement. Then there was the birth of Surrealism. It is a 20th century movement in art and literature which speaks about the unrelated images and events, and they were put together in a strange and impossible way, like in a dream, in an attempt to express what happens deep in a person's mind. Then there was expressionism, which was an artistic style, but the objective reality was not taken into in the field of art and literature. Rather, there was emphasis upon the subjective emotions and responses that objects and events arose within a person. So these movements, they had a great influence for the birth of absolute literature. And also Jean-Paul Sartre, who worked on existentialism as a great movement in the philosophy. You know, Jean-Paul Sartre had no time to receive the Nobel Prize. He denied all academic and all institutional prizes, including Nobel Prize also. And you know, friends, that Sartre was day and night busy in working on philosophy, in working on literature also. So he emphasized that he emphasized on individual existence, freedom and choice. So it focuses on the question of human existence and the feeling that there is no purpose or explanation at the core of our existence. So all these movements, they influenced a lot to the modern literature. And in 1950 and 60, there was an entire reassessment of philosophy. There was an entire reassessment of the world. There was an entire reassessment of religion, culture, ethical values in an intellectual way. And that is why we find that in the traditional literature or in the ancient or medieval literature, we find that the agonies and the sufferings that was described by the writers have been re-evaluated. And in this context, Friedrich Nietzsche, who actually wrote the book The Birth of Tragedy, where actually he mentioned how actually the writers have explained the helplessness of so many characters. Like in the Greek classical literature, we find the pangs of Prometheus, the agonies of Ajax, the helplessness of Oedipus. And in Elizabethan tragedy, we find also insanity of King Lear, credulity of Othello, confusions and delay of Hamlet, to be or not to be. That is the question. Ambition of Macbeth, and so many examples which presented rather life as an absurd thing. And that is why in 1950s and 60s, there was an entire reassessment of things to look at the world in new ways, in a more intellectual way. It has given birth to absurd literature in the prose, fiction, poetry, and plays. Many writers explored the human situation with both subjective emotion and objective reality. The inward and outward were mingled. French Kafka, Saul Bellow, Harold Pinter, Samuel Beckett, Jean-Paul Sartre, Eugene Ionesco, Edward Albee, Albert Camus, and more than 100 writers who brought a revolution in literature which prompted mankind to be conscious of the realities of human life. In this context,
Hello, sir.
slide please.
Sir, just which slide? Just I will share, sir. Which number?
I am sharing from here.
No, is it a Google Meet or not?
Google Meet.
Is it?
Yeah, I am sharing it.
Okay, sir. Sir, just tell me which number of. Sir, your PPT is not so I am sharing. Just tell me which number.
Yeah. Number 3.
Okay, sir.
Philosophers.
Okay, sir. Just tell me, sir. Next I will share. Continue.
Yeah. Philosophers. Looking back, this is slide number 3.
Sir, earlier slide, please.
Looking back, Friedrich Nietzsche, Soren Kierkegaard, and the photos are there.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, this one.
This one. Yeah. So here actually we find I have taken this slide of 4 philosophers: Friedrich Nietzsche, Jean-Paul Sartre, Soren Kierkegaard, and Albert Camus. So where we find when we are talking of absurd literature, we must remember the father of the absurdity, and Soren Kierkegaard, who was a Danish philosopher, and he has written 22 books, and in a single day also he has published 3 books, because his life was meant for writing. He was a very dedicated writer. So Soren Kierkegaard, who was a Danish philosopher, he is called the father of existentialism, and also he is called the father of absurdity. So he emphasized upon the individual existence, freedom and choice. He said that there is no God. The only way to counter is nothingness. And to find meaning in life is to accept existence. So this is not altogether a nihilistic attitude of Soren Kierkegaard. Soren Kierkegaard, he has written, when I opened my eyes, I saw the real world. I began to laugh. When I opened my eyes, I saw the real world. I began to laugh. What sort of life we live in this world? We earn $10, marry a woman or marry a man, and produce some children. He laughed at the foolishness of the world. If you marry, you repent. If you don't marry, you also repent. He told that no one asks when you enter, no one asks when you leave, and no one asks when you depart. He is called the father of absolutism because he attacked the pillars of modern life. He attacked the pillars of the earlier philosophy and found a universe so indifferent, and life is full of confusions and anxiety. So Soren Kierkegaard, his ideas have been taken. We will later on examine how his ideas have influenced the absurd writers. Secondly, we will think of Friedrich Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche was a German philosopher, and I am a very devoted reader of Nietzsche books. I have the book that is always with me. I carry with me. That is the Thus Spoke Zarathustra. That book is very favorite of mine. So he actually he was a philosopher, critic, poet, and writer, and he pronounced some provocative statements like, "God is dead. We have killed him." And also he told, "Meet the dangerous path. Break away from past. Choose the effective path. Emerge as a superhero amidst the meaninglessness." So this was actually the most positive things we find in Nietzsche philosophy, because he told that God is dead. We have killed him. So he is actually talking about the Superman or the superhero. So we can be godlike, we can be highly creative by our naturalistic thinking, by our natural thinking. We should not follow the past. We should not follow the philosophers of the past. We cannot actually follow them, because in modern life we are passing through so many confusions, so many difficulties, and so many problems. And that is why he told that we cannot become a slave of the past things. We have to choose the most dangerous path. So if we will continue our fight in this dangerous path, we will be able to find the effective goal, and we can emerge as a superhero amidst the meaninglessness. So his three books, The Birth of Tragedy, Untimely Meditation, Human, All Too Human. These three books, they actually give you all the ideas how actually you have to use all the uncertainties and meaninglessness of human life to emerge as a superhero. And there we have another philosopher which I have not mentioned here. He is also my favorite, Arthur Schopenhauer. Arthur Schopenhauer was another German Polish philosopher who was a great follower of the Buddhist philosophy, and he was enlightened by the philosophy of Gautama Buddha. So he was actually annoyed of the dry academic life of the educational institutions and universities. He was not actually in favor of going to a university, or he was not in favor of the dry academic writing and learning. So he actually created his own ideas. He created his own ideas, and he also spoke about the principles, that the values that a man should create in his life, in his own life. He should create his own philosophy, and he can build off his own life to accept the existence in spite of the indifferences of the universe and the world. So he felt that there is sickness, there is pain, there is death, and he told that intellect remains much excluded from reality. So our intellect, the knowledge that we have, that is excluded from the reality as what is happening in the universe. So he was a great philosopher, Schopenhauer, and we have read much on Jean-Paul Sartre, who was a French philosopher, and his theories on human existence. And this he also said that this universe is absurd and without meaning. Then people living in it are likewise without meaning. So man is only what he is. A tree is a tree and lacks all ability to change or create its being. So our unconscious being is itself, and to be aware is for itself. So he told that this universe is very absurd and it has no meaning, but still then we all are trying to find a meaning in it. But and finally we find that man is only what he does. So our action is very important. Our very programs of life, our intellectual and rational decisions of life are very important in this universe. Finally, Albert Camus, he was the Algerian French philosopher and the writer. He wrote the book The Myth of Sisyphus, which was published in the year 1942. He found that he expressed that life has no meaning and nothing exists that could ever be a source of meaning. So life has no meaning and nothing exists that could ever be a source of meaning. First, there is no meaning and there is nothing in this universe where you will try to find a meaning. So this speaks about the purposeless existence in an irrational universe. So there is a constant awareness in human mind to face the contradictions in meaninglessness to avoid suicide. So he has discussed a great deal on suicide in the book Myth of Sisyphus. And finally, because this is an essay, so here we find there is only a reference of the Greek mythology on Sisyphus, that Sisyphus is trying to pull a piece of rock to the mountain cliff, but finally the rock, it glides down to the bottom. So this is how we are making all kinds of efforts in this universe. We have lot of dreams, we have lot of purposes, we have lot of planning, but when death comes, it all seems very meaningless. So all these philosophers, they have provided the background to the absolute literature. So when there was the devastation in during the World War, nuclear holocaust during the World War, at that time we find that actually the whole world turned pessimistic. When millions of people, lakhs of people, they died in this nuclear holocaust in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and people, they died mercilessly, and particularly the despotic rulers like Hitler, Mussolini, and the fascists. They actually they wanted to take the world to a doom. So there was a lot of pessimism after the World War. So the trend of literature that we find during the wartime, during the World Wars, are basically actually full of pessimism. So sometimes when we think of the European literature of the modern days and the European philosophers, we feel that actually they are atheists. And when we just make a contrast of the European literature and the Indian literature, we find a great difference. So when an Indian, he starts writing like an European, for example, somebody reads the Wasteland, and if he follows what is there in the Wasteland, an Indian particularly, because what is there in the European civilization and culture is altogether different in Indian context. And that is why we do not experience much of the pessimism. We do not experience much of the paradoxes, confusions, frustration depression in our culture, so we must reflect that. So here actually the European literature has defined the meaning of life as absurd in an attitudinal examples of modern life. They have given some examples of modern life, that how there is dehumanization of society, and how there is a failure to communicate with people, how there are problems in language, and uh, problems in language. So all these things have been caused because they wanted to skip from the empire of imagination to the empire of facts. So we find that actually this world is they express that this world is a tiny like a peanut, and the individuals inside it becomes insignificant, which results in continuous feelings of alienation. So there is a continuous feelings of alienation because we are preoccupied with ourselves. Because of the materialistic world, we are more preoccupied with ourselves, and that is why we feel that actually the tragic situations of human life. So as far as the origin of the absolute literature, life is essentially meaningless, hence it is very miserable. There is no hope because of the inevitable futility of man's efforts. Reality is unbearable unless relived by dreams and illusions. So when we are not able to face the reality of life, at that time we are in a dream world, or we are in a dream world, or we are in a world of fantasy, illusion. So that is why we find that man is uh, fascinated by death, which permanently replaces dreams and illusions. So there is no action. So in the absolute literature, we find number one, life is essentially meaningless and it is very miserable, and there is no hope because there is inevitable futility in our every action. So we are not able to face the reality, and that is why we are relieved by dreams and illusions. Secondly, when we read absolute literature, we feel that there is no action or plot, and very little happens because there is no storyline in absolute place. You do not find a definite story. As we read Othello or as we read King Lear, we find a definite story. But when we read the chair, or when we read the Jew story, or when we read actually Waiting for Godot, so we do not find a definite storyline here. So here actually we have a very absurd and comic end to the conversation that is taking place between some people. So this is not actually a drama, a literature purpose. So there is no specific purpose in this literature. So we find that in the absolute literature, we find that they have deviated from the traditional literature because they focused on illogical acts, realistic occurrences, and how human beings are trapped in an incomprehensible world subject to any occurrence, no matter how illogical. So here plot is eliminated, there is no character development, and they also eliminate all these things to give a serious message of the metaphysical distress. So the term theatre of the absolute was coined by Martin Eslin, who first published the theatre of the absolute in 1961. So this movement was started by the influence of the Commedia dell'arte, first in Italy, then it spread all over the Europe. So here we find very comic senses, verbal nonsense, and very inept characters. So next, brother.
Sir, which number, sir? 4. Sir, number? Sir, number, sir? Sir, number, sir?
Number 12.
Okay, sir.
14, sir, 14, number 14.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, sir. Yeah, so we can divide the absolute literature into different sections. Like first, we can divide them. First of all, we can we shall discuss on the fiction, absurd fiction. Then we shall discuss 2-3 plays of absurd drama. Then 1 or 2 poems of absurd poetry. So absurdist fiction is a genre of literature that arose in 1950s and 60s. As we have already discussed, French Kafka and Jean-Paul Sartre, Samuel Beckett has also written some novels. Also Eugene Ionesco and Albert Camus, Salvelo, Donald Batelam and Cormac McCarthy. These are actually French Kafka, Jean-Paul Sartre, Samuel Beckett, Eugene Ionesco, Albert Camus, Salvelo, Donald Barthelme and Cormac McCarthy. So they are considered to be the most well-known composers of the absurdist fiction. And we all know that French Kafka, he was a German-speaking Bohemian novelist whose work shows the influence of a number of schools of philosophical thought, primarily existentialism. Kafka's work is also considered modernist, absurdist, and a precursor for the style of magical realism. So we have read his great work, The Metamorphoses. So we have 2 metamorphoses. One is the metamorphosis of Ovid, Philomela turning into a nightingale. And here actually another metamorphosis, where actually we find that Gregor Samsa, a young man who undergoes a transformation. In this story, Metamorphosis, Kafka tells us about the transformation of a Gregor Samsa. Gregor Samsa is a young man who is Gregor Samsa is a salesman who is actually very surprisingly transformed into a cockroach. Transformed into a cockroach one morning and discovers that he is no more a human being. Suddenly he has undergone a transformation. He has become a cockroach. So when actually we read this kind of novel, where we find something very elements of fantasy, elements of high imagination, we feel that actually this is nonsense. But this is not nonsense. Here actually this is a very highly symbolic novel, where actually we find that a human being has been transformed into a cockroach. And there is the problem for now Gregor Samsa, who is now transformed into a giant cockroach, and he is not able to open the doors. His mother, father, sister, the name of the sister is Gret. Mother, father, Gret, they actually knock the door. When Gregor Samsa, when he doesn't open the door, and when he finds that he is transformed into a giant cockroach, at the time, his mother, father, sister, Gret, they come and they knock the door, and they find that actually their son is transformed into a cockroach, a huge cockroach, and he cannot produce human speech. Also, he cannot open the door. But anyhow, Gregor Samsa, who is now a cockroach, he opens the door. And when he opens the door, he finds that his boss, the chief clerk, who arrives and scolds him that he has not gone to his duty that day. But he finds that this man is transformed into a cockroach. And when he is a cockroach, he is of no use as a human being. And that is why he runs away from the house of Grigor Samsa. Grigor Samsa faces a lot of problems because he cannot eat fresh food. Because he is an insect now, he will take delight in the rotting food. And Grigor Samsa faces lot of problems because earlier he had the habit of a human being. Now, because he is transformed into a cockroach, at the time he would love to take rotting food. And when his sister Gret brings milk and bread, he denies to take. When his sister brings rotting food, at that time he eats very hungrily. So here we find that Grigor Samsa is no more liked by the family members, and his mother, he brings the old furniture where he can crawl, and his father, who was very old, and he also goes for work because Grigor is of no use now to earn anything for the family, and because there was loans in their house, that is why his father, he goes for the work. And there we find Grigor dies one day. Grigor Samsa dies one day, and when he dies, no doubt the family members, they feel sorry for it, but also they feel very happy that because he was no more a human being, his death was most welcome. And here we find that Kafka uses a symbol that when you are of no use for this world, your death is most welcome. So when we are living in a family, when we are giving money to them, when we are giving emotional support, when we are giving financial support, when we are giving all kinds of benefit to the family, at the time we are loved. And when actually we are of no use, we feel that actually our life comes to an end. Our life comes to an end, and nobody likes us. Everybody will desire our death. So this is a very wonderful book, The Metamorphosis. Where we find that Franz Kafka has tried to bring out the harsh realities of life, that our life is meaningful when actually we are of the use for the world, for our society, for our home. Our life becomes meaningful, or else it becomes meaningless. So here Franz Kafka has brought actually a very harsh reality and the absurdity of the human situation, that we cannot always be helpful to the family or to the society. Sometimes when our moments of distress will come, our moments of helplessness will come, at that time we feel that actually we are meaningless. Even your wife will turn away her face if you do not fulfill her needs. Your child will not be happy if you do not give all kinds of support to her for education, for any other thing. And that is the problem with us, that as Camus has told, that where there is no love, there is no life. Life without love is death, Camus says. And we find that actually Franz Kafka has brought this the absurdity of human life in a very brilliant manner in his novel The Metamorphosis. So one of my favorite novel is The Plague, that was published in the year 1947. Sir, kindly show the slide number 16. Panda sir.
Sir.
Kindly show the slide.
Okay, sir. Already shown, sir.
Yeah. Camus wrote this novel in 1947, and today we are facing this pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, COVID-19, and the situation of today and the situation during that time, where actually we find this novel talks about the spread of plague, the spread of plague in the town of Oran. So we find the similar situation. Today we are facing the pandemic, and we have seen that in Italy and in other nations, dead bodies were thrown from the upstairs of the houses, and we have seen how people they have died in the street. The similar situation we find in this novel. So when we, during this time, during this pandemic, coronavirus pandemic, I have read that actually this book was translated into so many languages, and this book was sold very. This book was very popular once again during this pandemic. So it was translated into Spanish and Italian language, and it was rather the bestseller even today. So in this novel, we find that suddenly the people of Oran, in the town of Oran, people they find thousands of rats. They are dying in the street. They are dead in the street. They are thrown in the street, and the authorities are not doing anything. They have only killed the rats and they have thrown it in the street. So people they complain it, and the authorities they actually remove the dead bodies of the rats. So later on, the government announces that there is a pandemic and there was plague. So suddenly people they started suffering. You know that in the hospital a ward was created where there were 80 beds. As today we find also that in so many hospitals we find COVID hospitals. So also at that time in the hospitals many wards were created where actually there were 70 beds, 80 beds. But in one day, all the beds were filled up in Oran city. So people actually, they were advised to stay indoors, and the whole town was in quarantine. So some people they were mentally distressed and they wanted to commit suicide. Some people they believed in religion. The priest started preaching that actually because the people of Oran city are sinners because they have done a lot of sins, and that is why people now they are suffering. This plague is created because people they have done so many sins in their life. So there was the influence of the church and the Christian religion. People were made conscious that they should not do anything wrong that goes against the very interest of the mankind. This was going on. So we find that the people they were psychologically depressed and they were shocked, and the situation was very worse. Those who came out from their house, they were shot down in the street, and people they remained inside the house because martial law was imposed, and the graveyards were filled with dead bodies. We find also continuing for so many months. So there is a doctor, and his name is Dr. Riox, and he discovers a serum, and he gives the people the serum. But actually, he doesn't know that this medicine will work for the people, because there was no remedy at the time, and the nature of the medicine is not known. As today we have found so many vaccines today, and how the vaccine will react in our body, that we are not sure of. But we are going to get benefit out of it. So Dr. Riox, who was doing his sincere duty, to help the people, those who are affected by a plague. So he discovers a kind of serum, and he gives this serum to the people, and but finds that his own wife is affected by this illness, and his wife dies. And also during this time, we find many criminals. They earn a lot of money, and there was theft, there was crime, and there were so many people who were creating psychological fear among the people, and in a very irrational way. So we find that this novel speaks about all kinds of things that is happening today. So this is a very wonderful novel where actually Camus says that our knowledge cannot give the meaning to life. Today we say that we are at the peak of the civilization. Today we say that we are at the zenith of the civilization and we have gone to the other planets. We have we have done unprecedented achievement in the field of knowledge. But it has been proved during the time of pandemic that knowledge cannot give the meaning to life. Knowledge cannot solve your life and cannot answer the most fundamental questions about life. So today also we have learned that by maintaining safe distance and by maintaining the principles during the pandemic, we can protect ourselves. So thereby, Camus says that this earth is or the universe is not so responsible for what is happening in human life. Is indifferent to human problems. And in the novel The Plague, we find that the priest who was preaching that it is because of the sins of the people, it is because the people are sinner in Oran city, Oran town, that there is pandemic. But finally, in this novel, we find that the priest is also affected by plague. And today, as actually the temples were closed during this coronavirus pandemic, and mosques were closed, churches were closed, people were not allowed to go to the religious places because we have killed God, as Nietzsche says, that we have not maintained the ethical values or the moral values of life. We have not been able to make ourselves a completely human, that we do not live for others, we only live for ourselves. And that is why Nietzsche says that we have killed the God. God had created this world in a particular purpose, but because of our self-destructive nature, you know that in a very scientific study, it has been found that 95% of the people have this self-destructive nature, or they want to destroy the world. They cannot stop their vehicles for one day. They cannot stop anything that is going against mankind for one day. And that is why, because of the self-destructive nature, we want to be happy by ourselves only, and that is why we have failed to be a human. So here we find in this novel, Camus says that many of our queries cannot answer our questions. So I am citing only two novels. One was Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis, and the other is The Plague by Albert Camus. We will go to the theater of the absurd. Theater of the absurd, you know that this book, Theater of the Absurd, is available everywhere and is very popular in the world, which was published by Martin Heslin. And in this book, we find how actually Martin Heslin has analyzed the plays and the prose works of the absurd literature, the drama as well as the prose work of absurd literature in this book, The Theatre of the Absurd. And in this book, we find the same thing, the common sense anxiety, confusion, hopelessness that is presented in the plays of the absurd writer. So, the father of the theatre of the absurd is Samuel Beckett, and who wrote Waiting for Godot, Happy Days, and Act Without Words. This is another play. So Samuel Beckett has also written a few novels, but he is more famous for writing plays. In the play Waiting for Godot, we all have read Waiting for Godot. Actually, this is the translation of his own work, En attendant Godot. In French, the pronunciation of the word G-O-D-O-T will be Godot. and in British pronunciation it will be Godo. So this play is one of the most significant drama where actually absurdity is expressed in a very wonderful manner. And here we find that two person called Vladimir and Estragon, they are waiting under a tree. They are waiting for a person named Godo. Actually, they say that they have been waiting for this man since long, but that fellow did not come. There is a boy in this drama where actually this boy is the messenger of Godo, and he comes and tells that actually Godo will come one day. But when he comes, he tells that Godo is busy today. Tomorrow he will come. So here we here we in waiting for Godo we find Samuel Beckett works in pairs. There are two pairs: Vladimir, Estragon, Loki, and Pozo. So here actually in this play we find the farcical presentation of the characters. Actually, one character has low memory beyond what is immediately said to him, and Estragon has no memory. He is one of the protagonists of the two, and he depends upon the other for the memory. So here we find also the master and the slave. Pojo is the master who rules over Lucky. Lucky is the slave. So here we find a caricature of what nonsense goes in the world, and actually God doesn't. Actually, this boy is a servant of God, so he doesn't come, but rather he is the messenger. So here in this play we find that actually God is even Samuel Beckett told that Goddard is not God. Goddard is not God. He is actually presenting two things in this drama. One is that actually what is the condition of the modern man, how helpless he is, and how actually he doesn't have a specific plan in his life. He is moreover a bohemian, doing this and that. And another thing that we always find in the society, a slave and a master. A slave and a master. Again the slave and the master, because again the slave and the master, they are actually the victim of the human situation, because Pozo, who is the master, becomes blind later on, and he takes the help of the servant. So here we find the absurdity of human situation in waiting for Godo, and then we will just discuss something on the caretaker, where actually we find this play is very interesting. Here in this play we find a situation of the West London, and where actually we find three characters. One is Davis, who is a tramp, who was brought to the house of Meek and Aston. Meek and Aston, they are two brothers. And when the play opens, Aston saves Davis during a fight in a hotel, and he brings the Davis to the house. And this person is a very selfish man. He supplies him new shoes, he gives a bed to sleep. But this man tries to create differences between these two brothers. And once he learns that Aston is rather has some psychological problems because he was taking electric shock therapy, of Aston. He tries to exploit the mind of Aston, and later on, both the brothers, Aston and Meek, they are actually blood. They are brother by blood, and that is why they try to expose the intention of Davis. They expose the intention of Davis, and later on Davis was driven out. So this is a play, The Caretaker, where actually the poet uses the strong theme of dreams. Aston and Meek, they have made a house, but actually the house is not properly decorated. It is not clean. We cannot call that to be a house. They bring Davis to become the caretaker, and they are very ambitious that this man is going to do something for their house, and he will make this, he will beautify this house.
but this is actually not possible. So he is trying to portray again Meek and Aston as two lonely characters, and there is no actually true relationship existing in their mind and heart between Meek and Aston. Meek and Aston, they are actually not in harmony in their behavior, in their emotion, in their feelings, but they are brother by blood. So he is here actually. Uh, uh, Here actually we find Harold Pinter. He speaks that we are staying in a house. Two brothers are staying in one house. They are brother by blood, but their mind is different, their heart is different, their emotion is different. And when we actually bring another person outside the house who can solve the problems, he is actually going to destroy the problems. So there is danger inside and there is danger outside. So his plays are called the plays of manners. Plays of manners. Another play, and that is the Chairs by Ionesco. So in the Chairs we find an old man and an old woman. An old man and an old woman. So they are married for 75 years. So here we find these two couples are staying somewhere in a house that is at the midst of the ocean, at the midst of the sea, and actually the husband is looking through the window by standing on a stool, on a chair, and he's looking something through the window. So his wife asks, "What are you looking?" At the time he tells that I'm waiting for the guest. So we are here actually we find that at the beginning of the play there is an old man and there is an old woman, and they are chilling in their house, which is apparently completely surrounded by stagnant water, maybe ocean, and we do not know why actually and how actually this house is in the middle of the ocean. And there actually we find this old man who is now 95 perhaps, who is 95. He wants to give a message to humanity. He wants to give a message to all humanity, and that is why he has invited so many people. But in the drama, in the play, we find that actually nobody comes excepting these two characters, the old man and the old woman. And they say that actually the emperor has come, the photographer has come, and the beloved of this old man, Belly, she comes, and so many people they come there, but they are invisible. They are not seen on the stage. And the old woman brings a lot of chairs inside the room, and he says the guests to sit down there, but nobody is sitting there. The chairs are empty, and these are the invisible guests, and they want to take a message from the old man as what he has discovered as a meaning of life. Because when you live in this world with all your plans and programs, and when you are on the verge of death, what kind of meaning you have got from life? I remember that when my father died, I asked him, before his death, I asked him, what meaning you have got from your life? He said, no meaning. Yes, I remember, I tell you the truth. So my father told that there is no meaning in life. And that is why here actually we find in the play by Ionesco, the Chairs, where actually there is an old man and old woman who are frantically preparing chairs for a series of guests. But no guest comes there. All guests are invisible. Even children come there and they produce a lot of clamor. There are a lot of noises there. So there actually we find that actually this old man addresses somebody as an orator who stands in front of these chairs, and he is there to, this orator is going to share the message of the old man as what he has gained in life. And at the time when the orator tries to open his mouth, at the time he cannot speak. When he is both deaf and mute. He is both deaf and mute, and he cannot speak, and he cannot even listen also. So there were
there are a lot of unintelligible noises when he's trying to speak. At the time, at the end of the play, we find that the old man and the old woman, they jump through the window to the sea. They commit suicide. This is the end. This is the final message of the world. This old man and this old woman wants to give this message to the world that there is no message excepting the message of death. And there is a very cool acceptance of death. And we cannot avoid death, as Shakespeare has told, if not today, tomorrow. If not today, tomorrow. So if you are not dying today, definitely we are going to die tomorrow. And that is why whether we die today or whether we die tomorrow, it doesn't matter, because time is a rather self-created things for the management of life. So this is this time, the illusion of time is very much deeply rooted in our mind. The illusion of space, the illusion of time, the illusion of knowledge, the illusion of life is very real, is very wrongly created in our mind, because once we die, our name, fame, wealth, our knowledge, our understandings, everything will go away from us. And after 100 years, nobody will remember who is Rajendra Padi, who is even who is what. Nobody will remember, because this is the end of life. So this is the message of this play, The Chairs, that the final message a man can give to the world is the cool acceptance of death. Is the cool acceptance of death. So we have another play called The Jew Story by Edward Albee, where actually we find how actually there is an evasion of communication. In absolute literature, it is called the evasion of communication, because I want to speak, you don't want to listen. You want to speak, I don't want to listen. So there is a problem in our modern life that, Harold Pinter also explored the colloquial language or the native language, which he has expressed in his plays. And when you read the play like The Homecoming or The Caretaker of Harold Pinter, there you find actually the game of language. He had clearly experimented, and he had clearly understood the language that is used in the common day life, in the life of the common people. In everyday language has been used by Harold Pinter in most of his plays. And when there is a conversation between the Trump, Davis, Aston, Meek, we find that actually the language that is used in literature is not very ornamental, is not altogether different than the language that is used in abstract plays. So you know that that in the modern criticism and theory, where you find the formalist and the new critics, they told that actually the language of art is different and the language that we use in literature is different, is not justified in absolute literature, because they said that they gave the examples of the poetry of William Wordsworth, they gave the examples of the poetry of the earlier poets who have used a different kind of language for poetry or literature. But when we read this absolute literature, here actually the language is very conversational, the language is very colloquial, and they have used the everyday language. That is why these plays are more realistic and more enjoyable. So in the Jew story, we find this is the story of the two characters. One is Peter and the other is the Jerry. So the story begins with a conversation between Peter and Jerry, and particularly this play takes place in the Central Park of Newark, where actually these two characters, Peter and Jerry, they are standing on the, Peter is sitting on the bench. It is a very fine Sunday morning, when actually you find the sun in the horizon, and you find that this park looks very beautiful in the morning time. And here we find Jerry comes there, and Jerry wants to initiate a conversation with Peter. Peter is actually a publishing executive, and he has his wife, he has two daughters, he has a black cat, and he is a very self-accomplished man, and he is reading a book there. In every Sunday he comes there, he sits on the bench of the park and he reads the book. This is his pleasure. And at that time, suddenly you find Jerry, who is younger to Peter, he comes there. Here we find that Peter is married and Jerry is a bachelor. And Jerry wants to initiate a conversation with Peter. So when actually we start a conversation with a stranger, at that time the problem arises. So thereby, Jerry and Peter, they are having a conversation, and Peter allows Jerry to make a conversation because he's forced to do this conversation. And it is the very motive of Jerry's character to initiate a conversation. And he tells that actually his parents are dead and his childhood is spent in a very tragic manner. And where he is now, he is staying in an apartment which is not actually very suitable to stay, and he tells about the landlady who actually approaches Jerry for sex, and he wanted to use Jerry for as a machine, as an animal, and she wants to gratify her sexual appetite, and he has a dog, and once the dog had rather attacked Jerry and torn his dresses. So Jerry wanted to kill the dog, and the dog survived. So this is how Jerry tells that his life has become very miserable and it's not to be lived. So anyhow, at the end of the story, we find that Jerry starts punching at Peter, and Peter is very surprised when he gets some punches from Jerry. But finally, Jerry brings out the knife. And when he brings out the knife, Peter is terrified. So Jerry tells Peter to stand on the bench, and Jerry kills himself. So this is one way of committing suicide. So he tells that tomorrow in the TV news and in the newspaper, you will find the news about my death. So this is another way of committing suicide. So this is the absurdity versus reality, loneliness, and wealth and poverty. So here we find Jerry to be a very poor man, Peter to be a very rich man, and Peter has a family, Jerry has loneliness, and this is the contrast that is the playwright making, and between the wealth and the poverty, between the reality and the illusion, between the togetherness with the loneliness. So these contradictions that we find in two human beings. So this is a very wonderful play by Edward Albee. So this is a play because this is highly psychological. So when we make an analysis of the absurd literature, we find that the absurd literature is highly influenced by the very changing scenario of the modern world. And we find that the world was which actually created a kind of moral degeneration, a kind of devastation, a kind of disharmony in the world that influenced actually human mind. And you know that the post-world literature, post-world poetry, post-world drama, they reflects about individual struggle in a society that is fast changing, in a society where actually the human relationship have become out of harmony, where actually the human beings have become more mechanical, and there is a process of dehumanization. Or you know that when we talk of modern literature, we find that modern man is facing a great conflict between two things that, for example, we people, those who are very orthodox, we have actually been born in a very conservative manner in orthodox family. But today, our generation, our children, they are altogether different than us. So we find a great contradiction between the past and the present. So the modern literature has really tried to explore the things that happened after the World Wars. But when we talk of the European philosophy or European literature, in contrast to the Indian literature or Indian philosophy, we find a different thing. Our life is very well organized. No doubt because of the pandemic, we have suffered a lot.
and because of the pandemic, we are actually undergoing depression, and some people are dying, and some miseries are there. But then, still, then there is a great harmony. It is not because of the pandemic there is a drive for the husband and wife to stay together inside the home. We always stay together inside the home. There is a purity in our existence. There is a harmony in our existence. We are not atheists. Actually, when we read the absolute literature for 4 or 5 days, my mind was blown up, because again I read Nietzsche and other philosophers. So thereby, because we are spiritualists, because we have strong spiritual belief, because we have strong belief in God and faith, we cannot say that actually there is no God. So this universe is a divine plan, and the relationship between the creation and the creator is beyond our comprehension. We are not developed to the extent, as science says today, that we are not developed to that extent to understand the divine plan of God. Moreover, I think that we are divine rovers. We have a machine inside, and a machine cannot understand the things. We are all divine rovers, and we cannot understand the divine creator. You know that in Indian philosophy, in Upanishad, Vedas, and Indian way of life, when life is highly organized, and when actually we have to do sadhana, then only we can have some divine, we can know something beyond human world. So dear friends, so I have made a few discussion on absolute literature to the possible extent. But here I want to tell that a lot of absurd poetry have been written these days, and one of the poem that I'll be just concluding my speech with 1 or 2 poems. One is Kal Lahar, and another poet is Jacobs Frederick Lee Rox. One poem is Neverland is home for lost boys. You see the lines of this poem. Neverland is home for lost boys, boys who are young at heart, lost from reality, family no matter what. Neverland is home for lost boys, boys who are young at heart, lost from reality, family no matter what. Neverland is magical. Neverland is magical. So much pixie dust, it's enticing. Faith, trust, pixie dust is key. Neverland is a paradise. This world, Neverland. Neverland is a paradise where we follow and ensure that everlasting imagination is forever. Maturity and structure is taken away. Absurdity and imagination is embraced. Neverland is the second star to the right and straight on until morning. Neverland is a paradise. In spite of the meaninglessness, in spite of the absurdity, in spite that the morality and the ethical values of the society are dying, still then our earth is a paradise. Also Nietzsche, also Schopenhauer, also Camus, and every modern philosopher, they have the opinion that we have to become a superhero in a meaningless world. This world may not have some meaning for us because our very existence is very tiny and very insignificant. The universe is big. This man is, is the paragon of all animals, Shakespeare told. And man is so small in the world. The world is so small in the solar system. And the solar system is so small in the galaxy. And the galaxy is so small in the universe. And it is very difficult to imagine how universe is vast. We cannot imagine. Today scientists say that the universe is going away. The universe is going away. Scientists are working to know what is a black hole and how actually life has been created, world has been created. But no scientist has ever found what is the mystery behind it. It doesn't mean that there is no meaning in the creation. There is no purpose in the creation. We are born in this world to experience human life. So this is not our final destination, because Indians, they believe that our life is meaningful. Om Purnamada Purnamidam पूर्णात पूर्णम उदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णम अध्याय पूर्णम एव विशिष्टाय Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamada, that is the whole. Purnamidam, this is the whole. From the whole arises. Taking away the whole from the whole remains. Om, peace, peace, peace. So, this is how our Upanishad teaches us. Not any atheist literature, but life is a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful song. Our life is a wonderful gift of God. We are fortunate that we are born in the world, and we are fortunate that we know what are the meaning of tears. We know that what are the meaning of smile. We know that what is suffering, what is fear, what is anxiety. Lot of things we have learned in life. Lot of happiness has come to life. Lot of sorrows have come to life. We are heroes. We fight with all the things. If everything will be given to man, all kinds of happiness will be given to man, everything will be given to man, then also life will become meaningless and dull and monotonous. If you will get everything in your life, how to become happy in life, your all kinds of comforts, immortality will be given. And you know that Sibyl, the Greek character, in the Greek mythology, he was given immortality, but he prayed God for death. When you stay in a transitory world, in a momentary world, at the time, you will pray for death. When you will become old at the time, death is most welcome, like the play The Chess, when the old man and the old woman, they happily accept death. Okay. So thank you, dear friends, for being with me for some time. And I have expressed my views actually. So I thank you everyone for your patience hearing about my views on absolute literature. Thank you all, dear friends. Thank you.
Lot of thanks to you, sir. Really, this is a very wonderful session, a very fruitful one and meaningful one. So many appreciations are there in the chat box. So it's needless to say how the participants have been amused, maybe somehow bewitched by your eloquent deliberation. So now this, thank you once again, sir. Now this floor is open for discussion. So any participant, if wants to ask any question, you are allowed, you can unmute yourself and ask. So sir will give a justifiable answer to your questions. So any participant can open yourself and ask the questions. Here one question is asked by Subhash Chandra Sahu. Why absurd literature all over the world is also interesting, though it has no reality and feasibility in real life. Sir, please.
Yeah. As dear friend, you know about the negative capability in the poetry of John Keats. So we must develop the abilities, even though actually the it says about the meaninglessness, hopelessness of human life and insignificance of human life in this vast universe. But there is a message, as I told you, Nietzsche said that God is dead. Be a superhuman. Don't depend upon God. Don't be a parasite on God. Don't go to the mosque and the churches and the temples, and don't spend much time in prayer work. Also, the same message is there in our Bhagavad Gita, Karmanya Vadikaraste Mahaphaleshu Kadachana. So here the principle is objective reality. Absolute literature presents the human situation and the irony of human situation. It is not about the glorification of human life. It is about the sufferings, the anxiety, the confusion. And in the myth of Sisyphus, in this essay particularly, which is one of the greatest work of Albert Camus, where actually in the myth of Sisyphus, Albert Camus discusses about the problems of absurdity and about suicide. So he says that we must develop the capabilities, the ability and the power soul and then mercy. He is force independent. He doesn't believe it. He doesn't believe ideas and it created thoughts and ideas. And that is why absolute literature is a great source of inspiration, to emerge as a superhero against all these absurdities, contradictions and confusions. Dear brother.
Another question, sir. That is asked by Dodaman Nagaraja. Can we compare absurd literature to that fiction literature in English? Please enlighten me, sir.
Question again, please.
Can we compare absurd literature to that fiction literature in English?
Fiction literature.
I think it is referring to novels.
Yeah, absolute literature is actually not confined to only plays, because in our educational institution or people, they have read the Theatre of the Absurd by Martin Heslin. It is not confined to only to the world of fiction. So absolute literature, in absolute literature, fiction is included, and plays are included, poetry is also included. We have not developed much research in the field of poetry, absurd poetry. Perhaps we have not read much of absurd poetry. So the fiction can be included in absurd literature, and also the play, the Ravel, then your Harjak by Salbello, then Kafka's Metamorphosis, Kafka's the trial. All these are called actually the absurdist fiction. What I know actually, because you know that it is very difficult to have a silver line difference between the things in literature.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If any other participant wants to ask any question, please unmute yourself and ask. Then otherwise we should proceed to the next agenda. As per our agenda, we should next step we should proceed. Please unmute yourself and ask. I think there is no questions left, and nobody is going to ask any questions. So now I will request, before winding up the session, I will request our assistant coordinator, IQAC Udala College, Professor Satyabrata Malik sir, to propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. Very good afternoon to one and all. I am Satyabrata Malik, Assistant Coordinator, IQAC Udala College, Udala. It is a great honor and privilege for me to propose the vote of thanks on the behalf of the principal and staff of Udala College and the IQAC. At the
At the
very
very
outset,
outset,
I
I
convey my
convey my
special
special
thanks
thanks
and
and
gratitude
gratitude
to
to
our
our
Honorable
honorable
Principal,
principal,
Professor
Professor
Gopal
Gopal
Chandra Behera
Chandra
sir,
Behera sir,
for
for
giving us
giving us
permission
permission
to
to
organize this
organize this
webinar
webinar
and
and
providing
providing
us
us
all
all
possible
possible
support
support
and
and
encouragement.
encouragement.
I
I
extend my
extend my
heartfelt
heartfelt
thanks to
thanks
our
to our
today's
today's
chief
chief
guest,
guest,
Chief
chief
Speaker,
speaker,
Honorable
Honorable
Professor
Professor
Rajendra
Rajendra
Padi
Padi
sir,
sir,
for
for
enlightening
enlightening
us with
us with
his
his
knowledge on
knowledge
the
on the
topic
topic
absurd
absurd
literature,
literature,
a
a
word
word
without
without
meaning.
meaning.
Sir,
Sir,
indeed
indeed
this was
this
a
was a
very
very
informative
informative
and
and
useful
useful
discussion.
discussion.
Today's
Today's
talk
talk
not only
not
gave
only gave
us
us
deep
deep
insight
insights
into the
into the
topic,
topic,
but
but
also
also
revealed
revealed
many
many
interesting
interesting
facts
facts
about
about
absurd
absurd
literature.
literature.
Once
Once
again, I
again, I
thank
thank
you,
you,
sir,
sir,
for
for
sparing
sparing
time
time
from
from
your
your
busy
busy
schedule
schedule
to grace
to
this
grace this
event.
event.
I
I
express
express
my
my
deepest sense
deepest
of
sense of
appreciation
appreciation
to my
to my
colleague,
colleague,
Dr.
Dr.
Prafula Kumar
Prafula
Panda
Kumar
sir,
Panda sir,
coordinator
coordinator
IPSC,
IPSC
for
for
his
his
all
all
possible
possible
effort to
effort to
organize this
organize this
webinar.
webinar.
The
The
IPSC
IPSC
is
is
thankful to
thankful to
all the
all the
participants
participants
present here
present
for
here for
accepting
accepting
our
our
invitation
invitation
and
and
extending
extending
their
their
support
support
and
and
presence
presence
throughout
throughout
the
the
session and
session
making
and
this
making this
webinar a
webinar a
successful one.
successful one.
Last but
Last
not
but
the
not the
least,
least,
I
I
appreciate and
appreciate and
thank all
thank all
teaching and
teaching and
non-teaching
non-teaching
staff,
staff,
members of the
members of the
college
college
for their
for their
support and
support and
cooperation
cooperation
behind this
behind
scene.
the scene.
Once
Once
again, I
again, I
thank
thank
you everyone
everyone
for their
for their
support and
support and
cooperation,
cooperation,
directly or
directly or
indirectly, for
indirectly, for
making
making
today's
today's
event a great
event great
success.
success.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
I wish
I
a
wish
happy
you a
new
happy
year
new year
to
to
everyone in
everyone in
advance.
advance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Padi sir, my
Thank you.
accepting my invitation. I'm really, really thankful to you and grateful to you, sir, for accepting my invitation and making me so proud and also making our college so proud. So, I, on behalf of principal as well as IPC and all the staff members, once again I extend my hearty thanks to you, sir, and also all the
Thank you,
participants.
brother.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
brother. Thank you. God bless you.
Really,
Thanks to
really, sir.
Principal sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
I have already posted the feedback link in both YouTube as well as here in Google Meet. So kindly, participants, please fill up that so that I will generate your e-certificate and wait for a week. Within a week, I will receive your all the generated certificate. I will upload in the WhatsApp group. So you need not worry because some certificates are not going automatically to the email. So I'm going to upload all the generated certificate in the YouTube link. Your Google, WhatsApp group. So please help me to just fill up the form that is sent both in here as well as there in the YouTube, and I will send you the certificates. Thank you once again. Thank you all. So here I would like to stop this session, and before closing the session, I also wish all the participants and Professor Padhi sir a happy New Year in advance. Happy New Year, sir.
To everyone and dear brother.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
କଣ କହିଲେ ସାର୍?
Thank you.
ଏଇ ନା କଣ ଚାଲିଥିଲା?
ଏଇଠି ଚାଲିଛି ଲାଷ୍ଟ। ଏଇଠି କହିହେବନି ପରା ସବୁ ବେମାର। ବନ୍ଦ କରିଦେଲେ।
and still
नहीं तो